Hey guys, welcome to Any Last Words. I'm your host, Joe. If you're new here, thank you for joining. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and follow button. If you're not, welcome back. My guest tonight is Chuck Chapman, writer of Family Man, the unreal story of Charles Manson's right-hand man. How are you doing tonight, Chuck?
Doing great. How are you, Joe?
Not too bad, not too bad. Um, sad I didn't get to read the whole thing. I kind of talked about it with you before we got started, but because I got into the part the wood's starting to pick up, I'm like, damn it. But so I'm excited to talk about the book. But if you wouldn't mind, could we talk about you, like yourself, for a minute, and maybe let some people get to know you a little bit?
Okay. I spent 7 years on the road in performing rock bands back in the mid 90s, mainly up and down the East Coast. So never got out your way. Um, got to see the Whiskey this weekend. So that was kind of cool. I did the Sunset Strip this weekend, like 25 years after I was hoping to. So that was kind of cool. After that, stayed in local type bands and stuff for a long time, and then started doing some theater acting. Point local and regional, and have then got into making B-grade horror movies. So I make independent horror films. Um, the last one was called He Drives at Night. That had Butch Patrick, Eddie Munster from the Munsters in it. So that was kind of like I said, B, C, D level. So we do them on like a micro budget, but try to do as professional as possible on, basically no budget. And then I've done some background work in some major motion pictures, and then did a little bit of TV work too. So that takes care of most of my professional career, and then have written some short stories. And this is my first full length book that's been published.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you think this is something you would make a movie out of?
I don't know that I would make a movie out of it. I think because I have a lot of acting experience, and because I've written screenplays and written songs and stuff, that I think that the book could be converted to a movie very easily. So if there's someone out there that wants to invest in it, then sure, I'm all for it.
And you guys should. There's links in the description above or below. I never know where it goes once we go live. But there's a link in the description to take you to the page for Family Man, the unreal story of Charles Manson's right hand man, and a link for Chuck if you want to get a hold of him about making that into a movie, because I think that would be pretty cool. So, let's see. Oh, wait, I got a couple people popping in already. Richard, thank you for joining us. He also has a question for you. It says, please tell me Eddie Munster was driving the Munster coach.
Not when I worked,
Coach?
but when I met him, actually, he was doing a Monster Con, and he had both Dracula and the Monster Coach there. So got to see those. He actually owns those now and takes them around
Oh,
stuff. So I met him, say, 4 or 5 years ago at one of those. We just talked some, exchanged business cards, and when this opportunity come up for the film, I called him up and asked him if he'd be willing to do it, and he was great. He did most of his stuff remotely, even pre-COVID, but it worked out for this particular film. It worked out great, and he did an amazing job, as you could expect that he would, and just a joy to work with. Great guy.
that's awesome. That's what I like about going to conventions and you get to meet people there. And a lot of people, they're just in it just to do it, just to do the project. Like they really don't care if they're going to make millions of dollars or, be the next Brad Pitt or whatever. They just really want to do it because they enjoy doing it.
Right. It's a lot of fun. And I tell people, if you've never been to a horror convention, you haven't lived. You
Oh
have,
no, yeah, I know. Everybody's so welcoming and
they are.
nice.
Exactly.
It's weird. It's weird almost.
We freaks have to stick together. So it's like a freak convention, and, everybody's,
Sorry, what happened?
everybody's the president of the freak convention. There doesn't, nobody, there's no hierarchy. Everybody's cool.
Yeah, we're all on an equal playing field. Real quick, hey Miguel, hey Bo, hey Jesse, thank you guys for joining us. We're talking to Chuck Chapman tonight about his book, The unreal story of Charles Manson's right-hand man, which we're going to talk about in a second. Miguel also has a comment. He says, you can't go into filmmaking wanting to get rich. If you want to become a millionaire through filmmaking, start by being a billionaire. I would agree with that.
It's totally correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, you art and for the love. You don't do it to make a profit. It rarely do independent films, even on a large scale. I mean, movies they spend what they consider small amounts, $400,000 or $500,000, rarely make a profit. What I consider small amount, I made that movie for $3,000. So
that's pretty good, because that's not a lot to work with.
That's nothing to work with.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people fall in time.
Oh, exactly. Jeez, and I'll give you credits, please. I'll give you credits. IMDb is good. So this book, what inspired you to write this book?
I've been interested in the Manson case since I was 7 or 8 years old. I actually probably got involved in it the way most people do, and that's through either seeing the movie or reading the book Helter Skelter. I did both extremely early. I watched the TV movie that was made in 78 or something when I was 7 years old or something like that. And then as soon as I'd read the movie, then I had to read the book, and I've read the book probably 5 or 6 times over the years. So that's what got me started, what got me interested in the case, period. I've always been fascinated with Manson. I think he was just a super colorful character.
Yeah.
The epitome of walking that thin line between genius and completely batshit crazy. And he would sometimes walk that line, and then sometimes he would fall far off to one side or the other. So.
You got to put a string on Charlie and pull him back when he goes too far. So did you get to, or did you interview anybody before you wrote this book? Like what kind of research, I'm sorry, besides you being a fan of the case and him himself as a person, like did you do anything special to help write this book?
Yeah, I spent 8 years basically watching every day. And when I started doing it, it was not anything formal. It was just, 30 years after reading it the very first time, over the years, read different things here and there. And the more you find out about the case, the more ridiculous 2/3 of Helter Skelter becomes. And you realize that that is the official story, but there's no way that most of that is the true story.
Yeah.
So after I started reading things that weren't, $1 million bestsellers, you start questioning things. And then I started looking back at original documents, like some articles, the article in Life magazine, articles in the LA Times and stuff that were published at the time. And the perception at the time was extremely different than the perception is now. So then I start digging deeper into police reports, autopsy photos, crime scene photos. And you really start going, okay, a lot of this stuff doesn't add up. And I just started researching for myself, just for my own personal knowledge and to satisfy my own curiosity, and either say, okay, you're a nut and you need to get your tinfoil hat, or else you're onto something. And the more I started listening, the more I started looking for information, I found out that I'm not the only one. There's, a lot of other people out there that feel the same way. We didn't get told this true story. Charlie didn't get a fair trial. Now, that's different from saying that I think Charlie's innocent. That's different
Right.
from saying that I think he's a great guy and I want to emulate him. Neither of those things is true. But
Right.
I do think he went to prison for something that he didn't do. And didn't say he wasn't involved, but he didn't do. Even the prosecutor himself admits that he wasn't even present at any of the murders. So, a guy got originally sentenced to death, but ends up spending 50 years of his life in prison for murders that he couldn't possibly have committed.
Right. Now, did you hear that and I don't know how true this is because, like you said, everybody has a different story basically, and you have to really dig and look for yourself to find out what the truth is or try to make some sense of what's going on. There had been, I want to say it was 2016 or 17. I know he died in 17 because it was here. He was in our town when it happened. He was at our hospital here.
Uh,
But I guess he had confessed to several inmates that he was connected with and involved in up to 35 murders. And then I guess they started looking at cases that were like, oh, it was kind of close to Sharon Tate's house. So to me, it kind of sounds, I don't know, but what do you think about all that?
I think that was jailhouse bragging. That most of that was said in the late '60s, early '70s, and I think
Okay.
that was just to generate people talking and to get some publicity and to just be outlandish as much as anything. No, they have not been able to connect a single other murder to him for sure. There's been others that possibly some of the people that were considered part of the family could have been involved in. But again, most of these happened when Manson was confirmed to be in jail, so there's no way he participated.
Right. Oh,
So I don't think there's anything to that claim at all. I would be very surprised if, I do mention a couple of other um, murders in the book at the very end and say, hey, they were implicated in these but never charged. Um, so
thanks for
there's a
spoiling the ending for me. I'm just kidding.
yeah no,
I'm just
you know,
playing. I'm playing.
yeah well to finish answering your question, I get sidetracked easily. Um, I talked to tons and tons of people, most of which I listed in the back of the book. Some asked that I not put their names in, or to credit them as anonymous, so they didn't get credited at all. But I did probably around 36 to 38 hours worth of interviews with different people for the book.
Wow.
A lot of people that knew Charlie personally, knew him well. Um, People that knew a few of the family members really well. I didn't speak with anyone direct. I tried to get in touch with a few, and one, it's really hard.
I bet.
They're only going to be able to tell you so much anyway. Um, and then three, I'm sure I couldn't afford to pay them what it would take to get. So I had to rely on kind of second and third tier information, other than the documented info that was in the police reports. And I used a ton of the original police reports because so much of what was in those reports got left out of the trial when they decided to come up with the helter skelter theory and race war stuff and all. They left a ton of the original evidence and a ton of the direction that the police were looking in originally. They just totally left it out.
Wow. You know what? I wouldn't doubt that. Trying to make a case. What do you think is the most fascinating or interesting thing that you had found out? I mean, if you found out anything like that just totally blew your mind.
A few things that I don't feel comfortable discussing, and I didn't feel
Oh,
comfortable in the book. I alluded to a couple of those things, but you have to really look for those allusions, allusions with an A, um, because it was stuff that I didn't think A did anyone any particular good to disclose at this time, and two, I didn't want to open myself up for liabilities.
understandable. So something really cool that we can't, well, not cool, but something
Not
really
cool,
mind blowing that we can't share.
right? Unfortunately, yeah. But a lot of the conversation in the book, now the book is taken from a first person perspective of a fictional family member. The name Charles Manson's right hand man, people immediately assume that was Tex Watson, or that it was, um, Paul Watkins or TJ Wallerman, or some of the ones close that were kind of tight there. But truth is, Charlie didn't have a right hand man because Charlie grew up in prison and Charlie didn't trust anyone.
Mhm.
So he really wouldn't have totally confided in any of those people. And he would use people to get what he needed done out of them. Um, I don't think so much he was a cult leader. I think that's garbage. I think that's another one of the things that they've put out there that's just totally unfounded and not true, because there's tons of documentation that even the principals in the killings, Susan Atkins and Tex Watson, left the ranch at will, would be gone for days and sometimes weeks at a time. So how far under his spell could they be if they were allowed to leave and come back, leave and come back?
Yeah.
So I think that totally dispels this mindless robot, you know, um, hypnotized to kill or whatever.
Right. And I noticed that, well, I'm not that I noticed, but I liked the fact that, I mean, if I'm not giving, I hope it's not giving away, but the character Bill, Bill Shepherd or Shep, um, it's kind of like, I don't know, in a small sense, it's like a coming of age, discovering yourself, figuring out who you are in one of the most, altering times, I guess, in more ways than one, in San Francisco, and I really liked that a lot. Sorry, I started distracting myself because I easily get distracted as well. I had a point where I liked how you wrote it in that way. Um, and I don't know, and a little bit I can kind of see, like, I mean, I don't know you, but from what I've seen on your presence on Facebook and a little bit of your history, maybe you might have written the character a little bit with you in there,
Of
being
course.
like a young musician, this and that. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away. I'm gonna be quiet now.
No, no, largely a part of myself and how I think I would have reacted in that situation in the 60s at 18 years old when you've lost at that time what you feel is your whole world.
Right.
Um, and you just want to start over. You want to start new. And like you said, find yourself, because up until this point, you've been somebody's son, somebody's classmate, somebody's best friend, somebody's boyfriend, but you've never really had a chance to be you. So, that's what it says in the first part of the trailer, is that Shep went to San Francisco to find himself, but he ended up finding Charles Manson.
Right. But the way you wrote it, though, I mean, it is that exact. It's not like it's just something that's just written in the title. It very much is that. I mean, at least through, what am I on, chapter 46? It's like it's very much a lot of him finding himself and figuring his shit out and just living his life and just understanding what's going on around him. Well, that's just what I'm taking from it.
Oh,
But
for sure. I mean, it's told as being Shep's life story. Um, and Shep is a totally fictional character. It was drawn probably 50% from myself and how I think I would have reacted under those situations. But also, it's probably drawn an equal 50% from the multiple guys that were there and how they reacted. Bobby Boussolet, Tex Watson, Bruce Davis, um, Clem, all those guys that were there. And you look at, okay, this is what they did in this situation. This is what they did in this situation. So you have some reference point of how did the normal drifter, teenage hippie boy react at that time, and then you put your personality in there to get, okay, well, this is how me as this person would react.
Okay. Again, you guys, just a reminder, the links are in the comments somewhere around us, floating in the universe of the interwebs. If you guys want to check out Chuck's book, Family Man, it's in the description, as well as Chuck's itself, because if you're a filmmaker, check it out and hit him up. Maybe you guys can collab and make this into a movie. I think it would be a really interesting movie. I mean, because it is and it isn't real. You know what I mean? And that kind of, I don't know, that's what was kind of messing me up about reading the book, is because I knew what was going on, but I'm reading it and I'm like, but wait, this didn't really happen. Hold on. I have to stop myself every once in a while and go, wait a minute. I don't remember that happening. Oh, duh, because that didn't happen, dummy. Like,
Well, a lot of it probably really did. So unless it pertains exclusively to Shep,
right.
then,
Well, that's what I mean. But no, I know there you do have mentions of, like, Brian Wilson and Dan. Why can't I even think of his name right? Danny or David Wilson from the
uh,
Beach Boys.
yeah, would have been Brian Wilson.
Brian, yeah, sorry. But yeah, I mean, you do have real stuff in there. Um, but for me, that's just because of my thought process. That's what kept messing me up, is I had to keep stopping, because I did know that a lot of that stuff, stuff in there was true, but I'm like so fixed on his story and like going through it. I'm like, but wait, what guy are you? And I was like, wait a minute, no, you're not even real. What am I talking about?
And that's what I I like, and that's what I wanted. I wanted people to get so caught up and care so much about Shep that they almost forget it's a Manson story. They're not going to
It's
forget
great.
because it's only a few paragraphs away each time, because it's told through the timeline of exactly what I think really happened. The true story of what happened from 67 when Charlie got out of prison until late 69 when he went back. Um, this is what I think really happened, and I have tons of evidence, tons of support for these theories. Um, can't prove all of them, could probably prove most of them, but I wanted to tell that story and tell that story clearly. But I didn't want people, there's like 80 books on Manson out there. So I wanted this one to be something really different. And I wanted it to be something that Manson fans could enjoy, true crime fans could enjoy, but also just people who enjoy a good scary story, or as you say, even a good coming of age story. I think that I fit a lot of different genres, actually weaved them together. My wife even said, I can't believe somehow you fit a love story into the Charles Manson saga.
I was a little sad at one part. So I was like, oh, really? Oh, well, it didn't seem like he cared anyways. No, so do you think that you'll write another book based off? I mean, because I know you were trying to get all of that into this story, but since you do have, like, you know what I mean, like maybe actually write like a true crime theory type book, if you will. I guess that would be the way to describe it. Like
That
what you actually think happens with all of your actual evidence explained in it.
It's all in here minus the evidence.
Okay.
So the true story's in here. So I've already done that. I just tried to wrap it around the fictional story, like I said, to be different. And I think documentation is boring. I mean, I spent 7 years looking through documentation. I enjoyed the interviews I did with people. I enjoyed the books that I got to read and the lectures I got to listen to and the interviews that I got to listen to. But going through all those papers, I had 7 notebooks, 3 inches thick,
Wow.
notes. So I wanted to take all that out for people. If you want proof, the proof's out there. It's in multiple locations. Most of these records have been released to the public now. You got to dig for them. But most of the stuff I found can be documented by stuff you can go online and find out. The stuff that can't necessarily be documented, you're probably still going to find the origin of it if you look hard enough. So I tried to bring all that took me all this time to put together and put it into a 300 plus page book that wasn't just data and facts, because so many of the Manson stories are, on August 8th at 8 a.m., blah, 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 at 3 p.m., blah, blah, blah. And I meant, to me, do you really need to know, what Sharon Tate had for dinner?
Yeah, that's a little much.
But a lot of these have that, and they're going to tell the length of the stab wounds. And, of course, I hit the number because to me that's important. But how deep and how wide they were, I don't think people really care about. So I try to lose a lot of that minutia and a lot of that 10 pages worth of proving something to show it happening through Shep's eyes. So I hope
um
it more interesting and more exciting to learn it like you would learn it from a friend telling you the truth and telling you the story, than to have to dig through page after page after page after page of information.
okay, I gotcha. Ah, man, now I'm gonna try really. I mean, I know I think, what is that, like about halfway through the book?
Yeah, probably.
46? About halfway? I think I
Let's
could probably get the rest of the half tonight. I've
have a
got
couple.
enough coffee today.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
this is the book, you guys, just in case you go to Google it or look it up and you're not sure. This is the cover. Mr. Charlie right there. Did you ever become a fan of his music by any chance, or was it just kind of meh?
I think that he was very, very good musically. I paint a lot of that in the book and offer a lot of proof to the people that thought highly of him. If people like Neil Young and Dennis and Brian Wilson think highly of your music, who am I to say that it doesn't have potential? But I think that's what it was. I think he was very creative lyrically. He was adequate on the guitar. He had I think, an above average singing voice. So I personally think he probably could have been successful, at least moderately, in the late 60s through the early 70s, in the vein of like a Cat Stevens or an acoustic style Bob Dylan. There was enough of that still around at that time, America, that kind of thing, that I think Charlie could have been moderately successful. I mean, I don't think he was going to be the next Elvis or Beatles or anything, but I think he probably could have made a living out of his music. Just he didn't have the right attitude for it, because if you're in the entertainment industry at all, you know that you don't do things your way, you do it the way you're told. And Charlie didn't like doing anything, being told anything, because he was
Mm-mm.
told exactly what to do so much in his life through reform schools and prisons and stuff, that he wanted it done his way now.
Right. Do you think that, well, I mean, well, I honestly think he had to have had some kind of mental click, if you will. It wasn't, maybe he had like some kind of schizophrenic. I'm not a doctor, just play one on TV sometimes. But maybe, like maybe he was kind of schizophrenic or something. I mean, he wasn't dumb by any means. I mean, like you even said earlier, he was on that border right there.
Yeah, he was very intelligent. I think he had like a 125, 130 IQ, so he wasn't a dumb.
Ooh,
Now, he was uneducated. He was
right.
definitely dyslexic. He was proven dyslexic. Um, and probably, I don't, maybe some mild schizophrenia, especially in the later years. But I think more probably bipolar. But,
Okay.
he didn't really diagnose stuff like that then.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, especially like in the 80s. It was still like they were kind of getting into it, like the mid late 80s, and then it just kind of blossomed, and then now it's like there's all this stuff everywhere.
Right. Right. There's new initials every day. So I definitely understand that's not a shot at mental illness.
No, 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 no.
and suffer with major depression myself, so I'm one of you. So I totally am an advocate for mental health awareness and all. But they had no mental health awareness in the late '60s. That was the commentary. Sometimes I think we may have too much mental health care in the 2000s.
Maybe. Oh, maybe one day we'll figure out how our brains work and why they work all differently. Because yeah.
But to me, that's one of the big intrigues of serial killers, and which Charlie was
Oh
not,
yeah.
because serial killer, the definition of a serial killer, he does not fit at all. Like I said, it's not proven that he ever killed anyone, um,
Right.
at all. In fact, we know of, let's see, what, seven, nine murders. We know that he was only present at one of them.
Hmm.
So if you're getting convicted of murdering 9 people, but you're only present at one of those, that doesn't
Mm,
serial killer.
yeah. It was I mean, like I said earlier, I don't know as much as you know. But wasn't it that they basically kept him because of the way he was? I mean, like you said you didn't think it was a cult. I really didn't think it was a cult either. Um, I just thought it was just a lot of lost people who just needed somebody to guide them somewhere, and they just chose this guy. Like, this
Yeah.
guy seems like a good idea. Let's go over here and see what's going on.
Well, the fact that we're interested in him 50 years later shows the amount of charisma he had. There
Absolutely.
stands out, and I mean, you think, when you think of these particular crimes, you think, wow, this is horrible, this is heinous, and it is. But there's way more people out there who there's my southern coming through. There's way more people out there who have done a lot more that nobody can even call their names. Um, a lot got pinned on Charlie just because at that time they wanted to end the counterculture. Everybody from Nixon, who declared him guilty, in the newspapers when the trial had just started, all the way down to Ronald Reagan was the governor of California at that time. Um, Ethel Younger, who was the district attorney who appointed Vincent Bugliosi, went on to become the state attorney general. I mean, and those guys all played golf together. And those guys were all adamant.
They're all buddy
Of,
buddies with each other.
well, they're big time supporters of the Vietnam War. You know,
Mhm.
we think this is when the Vietnam War was at its height and the protest of the Vietnam War was at its height. And they were all adamantly against the war. And who did they blame, you know, for causing so much division and stuff? Well, it was those hippies and those dope heads and those counterculture people. You know, they're the ones that's giving America a bad name, you know, trying to protest the war and stuff. And, you know, when they arrested Charles Manson and they started getting a little bit of this story out there, wow, what better guy do you have to make an example of to show how evil and bad hippies are and how bad the counterculture is than a guy that looks like Charles Manson that you just found out killed a beautiful Hollywood starlet and all these innocent people? You know, he was the hero that, or the anti-hero or bad guy that they were looking for. You know, so he played his role really well. And a lot of the stuff he did, I think he just felt like his situation was hopeless. And so he's just like, okay. I mean, he even made the statement, if they say I'm the devil, then I'm going to be the devil. You know, and he shaved his head, and they asked him why he shaved his head. He said, because you say I'm the devil, and the devil always has a bald head. Which is one of my
Was
favorite.
that before or the after the swastika in between the
This was
eyes?
before. Yeah, this was before
Okay.
he first carved the X in his head.
Mm-hmm.
And then he shaved his head because the X was to X himself out of your society. And because he was just protesting. I mean, like I said, he got arrested for things he didn't do. And,
Yeah.
you know, now could they have got him for conspiracy? Maybe. At least in Shorty Shea, they could. Could they got him for, you know, keeping things secret that he knew, impending investigation? Yeah, probably. Could they have got him even as an accessory before and after the fact of murder? Yeah, most definitely. He knew, definitely afterwards, probably before, definitely before at the La Biancas. I'm not sure if he knew about the Cielo situation until afterwards. Until because I think, and if you read, you'll see that that was not instigated by Charles Manson at all. And more than likely, he only became aware of the fact either shortly before it was going to happen, and it wasn't planned to be a murder that happened, and you just got to read all that. So,
Right.
statement leads to another statement going, oh, this is why. So, and try to paint those out in the book and give you the story of how it happened. Like I said, without going, you know, that da 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 da. You get, okay, if I was your friend telling you how something happened, I'm not going to give you every minute detail and quote centimeters and all that. I'm just going to tell you, hey, this is what happened. So that's what I try to do here. And like I said, make it an interesting read, even if you're not into it. I think if people that are into it, they'll love it. And a lot have. And I think people that know nothing about the Manson case, you'll learn a lot, and you'll, I think it's just a good story. And that's what I tried to work hard for, was getting the true information out there was important. But like I said, it's out there. I just tried to compile it in a more succinct form than has been. But telling a good story was my primary objective.
Well, you nailed that on the head. I'll tell you that right now. I haven't even finished it. I'm going to finish it tonight because I do want to know what the hell happens next. I got to a part and I had to stop, and I'm like, damn it! Why do people have to eat food right now? So, oh, but we're coming up on our time here, sir. Do you have any last words you'd like to give our viewers?
Just, hey, check out the book. It's available at Amazon.com. It's available in an ebook if you prefer doing it on the Kindle or whatever, on Google Play, BarnesandNoble.com. Basically, every online book site, you're going to be able to find it. And you can ask for it if you're local at your local bookstore. If you want to support them, that would be great. They can order it for you. And yeah, just I hope you read it. I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, send me a message and tell me what you think of it. And I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your opinions.
I
If any,
can't wait to finish it.
feel free.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, what was that? You cut out.
Anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to ask, feel free, to send me. whatever.
You guys, the links are in the description. One last time, below, above, somewhere around us in the interverse.
I think they're down.
Yeah, they probably are. I think on wait, I think in YouTube they're above or some. There's a different place where it's somewhere else. So I just say wherever we're at. um, but yeah, so the links are in the description if you want to get a hold of Chuck, or if you want to go directly to the page for the book Family Man: The Unreal Story of Charles Manson. It's a great book, you guys. I'm not finished with it yet, but I am very impressed with it. I would die to see this as a movie, honestly, especially to be able to compare it to what we know and this person not being a real person, and then reading this book too. It's interesting to see the two that way. But yeah, you guys check it out. And Chuck, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing the book. And thank you for sending me the book. I really appreciate it. It's been so long since I have been able to sit and read something that's not a script or for a show or something else. Like I was actually able to sit and read a physical book.
That's the one thing. That's the only good thing I can think of so far about COVID is I've gotten to read a lot more. Because, like I said, I've usually got a song to memorize or a script in my hand or something. And this time, unfortunately, none of that's happened. But I've gotten to read a lot and finish writing.
There you go. Oh, I got to finish writing too. Can we just put the world on pause? Find that button somewhere, somebody. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. Again, check out those links and let Chuck know what you think about the book. It's a great book. You guys check it out. I will be back. What's today? I will be back Saturday for Joe's Creepy Kitchen. I have no clue what I'm making, so you guys tell me what I'm making. Thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate it. Thank you to Richard, Gonzalo, and Aaron for your support on Patreon. Very much appreciate it. And I will see you guys Saturday night. Good night.